The blood on Ryder Ashford's hands had never been invisible. But on the day Lily Vaughn walked into Deadwood with a rifle twice her size and determination that could crack stone, he discovered something heavier than guilt, the weight of wanting to live again. She stumbled off the afternoon stagecoach in September of 1878, dust clinging to her dark traveling dress, her green eyes scanning the main street like she was searching for ghosts. And when their gazes met for the first time outside the general store, Ryder felt the 8 notches on his gun belt burn through leather and flesh straight into whatever remained of his soul. He had been leaning against the hitching post, watching another day crawl toward dusk in this gold-mining town that had seen more death than prosperity, when she approached with that oversized rifle clutched in both hands. Her auburn hair was pinned up, but coming loose from travel, and there was a smudge of dirt on her left cheek that somehow made her look more real than anyone he had seen in months. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I am looking for someone who can teach me to shoot properly. I have money to pay for lessons." Ryder straightened, his hand instinctively moving away from his Colt revolver as if she might sense the violence it represented. He was 32 years old, and most days he felt ancient. "Madam, this is not exactly the kind of town where ladies learn marksmanship. Might I ask why you need such instruction?" Her jaw tightened, and he watched her knuckles go white around the rifle stock. "My father was murdered 3 months ago in Wyoming. The man who killed him is heading this way, and the law has done nothing. I intend to face him myself, but I refuse to die because I could not handle a weapon properly." The words hit Ryder like a fist to the chest. He had spent the last 2 years trying to become someone different, someone who did not solve problems with bullets. But the raw honesty in her declaration made him understand immediately that turning her away would be condemning her to death. She would find someone else to teach her, someone who might take advantage, or worse, she would face her father's killer unprepared. "What is your name?" he asked quietly. "Lily Vaughn, and yours?" "Ryder Ashford." He watched for recognition, but there was none. Good. His reputation had not reached her ears yet. "I will teach you, Miss Vaughn, but not for money, and not because I think revenge is the answer to your grief." "Then why?" She lifted her chin, defensive and proud. "Because if you are determined to walk this path, you deserve to survive it." He gestured toward the edge of town. "I have a property about 2 miles out. We can practice there without drawing attention. But first, we need to get you a weapon that actually fits you. That rifle looks like it belonged to a man twice your size." "It was my father's," she said softly, and Ryder heard the grief underneath. "Then we will keep it safe," he replied. "But for shooting, you need something you can handle. Come with me." He led her to the gunsmith shop, a cramped building that smelled of oil and metal, where old Samuel Harrison sat behind a counter covered in disassembled firearms. Samuel looked up through wire-rimmed spectacles, his weathered face breaking into a slight smile when he saw Ryder. "Ashford. Thought you had sworn off guns." "I am helping a lady," Ryder said simply. "She needs a rifle that suits her frame and a revolver for close range, something reliable." Samuel's eyes moved to Lily, assessing her with the practiced gaze of someone who had outfitted countless shooters. "Let me see your hands, miss." Lily set down her father's rifle carefully and extended her hands. They were slender but not delicate, with calluses that suggested she was no stranger to hard work. Samuel nodded and disappeared into the back room, returning with a Winchester rifle that was noticeably shorter and lighter than the one she had been carrying. "This is a modified 1873 model," Samuel explained. "Chambered for .44-40 ammunition, which you can also use in a revolver. Reduces the weight you will be carrying." He set it on the counter and added a Colt single-action revolver beside it. "Try the rifle first. See how it feels." Lily picked up the Winchester, and Ryder watched her face transform as she felt the balance of it. She brought it to her shoulder experimentally, her movements awkward but earnest. The rifle suited her much better, and even Samuel nodded approvingly. "How much?" Lily asked, reaching for the small purse attached to her belt. $30 for the rifle, $20 for the revolver, and another $5 for ammunition, Samuel said. "But if Ryder is vouching for you, I will take $45 total and throw in a holster." Lily counted out the money without hesitation, and Ryder realized she had prepared for this expense. She had come to Deadwood with a plan, however desperate it might be. The thought made something twist in his chest, a feeling he had not experienced in years. It might have been protectiveness or admiration, or simply the recognition of someone else who carried their pain like a physical burden. They left the gunsmith shop as the sun started its descent, painting the dusty street in shades of amber and rust. Ryder's horse, a gray gelding named Ash, was tied outside the saloon, and he untied the reins before turning to Lily. "You have lodgings?" he asked. "I took a room at the Grand Central Hotel," she replied, adjusting the gun belt Samuel had helped her strap on. The weight of the revolver seemed to surprise her, pulling slightly at her hip. "Good. That is the most respectable establishment in town. Tomorrow morning meet me here at dawn. Wear practical clothes, nothing fancy. We will ride out to my property and begin your training." Lily met his eyes directly, and he saw the same determination that had drawn him to help her in the first place. "Thank you, Mr. Ashford. I will not waste your time." "Ryder," he corrected. "And Miss Vaughn, before we begin this, I need to know the name of the man you are hunting. If he is who I think he might be, you deserve to know what you are facing." Her expression darkened. "His name is Vincent Crow. He is a gambler and a cheat, and when my father caught him marking cards in a game in Cheyenne, Crow shot him in the street like he was nothing." Ryder felt his blood run cold. He knew Vincent Crow by reputation, a man who had killed at least a dozen people and always managed to slip away before facing justice. Crow was fast with a gun and had no conscience whatsoever. The idea of Lily facing him made Ryder's protective instincts roar to life with an intensity that surprised him. "Crow is dangerous," Ryder said carefully. "More dangerous than you can imagine. Teaching you to shoot is one thing, but confronting him is another entirely." "Are you trying to discourage me?" There was fire in her voice now, defensive and fierce. "No," Ryder said honestly. "I am trying to make sure you understand the stakes, but I will teach you everything I know, and when the time comes I will stand beside you. You will not face him alone." Lily's eyes widened slightly. "You would do that? You do not even know me." "I know enough," Ryder replied, "and I have spent too many years running from the man I used to be. Maybe helping you is how I start making amends." He did not add that the thought of her dying because he had not done enough was already unbearable, even though they had known each other less than an hour. She studied his face for a long moment, and Ryder wondered what she saw there. The scars, certainly, the weariness, but maybe also the sincerity, because after a pause she nodded. "Dawn," she agreed. "I will be ready." Ryder watched her walk toward the hotel, the new rifle slung over her shoulder and her spine straight despite the obvious exhaustion from traveling. When she disappeared inside, he mounted Ash and rode toward his small ranch on the outskirts of town, his mind already working through everything he would need to teach her. The ranch was modest, just a cabin and a barn with a corral for Ash and the 2 other horses he kept. Ryder had bought it with money he had saved from his gunfighting days, back when wealthy men paid him to eliminate their problems. He was not proud of that past, but he could not erase it either. All he could do was try to be better now. That night, he cleaned his guns with methodical precision, something he had not done in months. His hands remembered the movements, the ritual of it, and he found himself thinking about Lily's face when she had spoken about her father. Grief was a language he understood intimately. His own parents had died when he was 16, killed in a raid by outlaws, and he had spent the next decade becoming exactly the kind of man he had sworn to destroy. It was not until he had killed a young man in a duel, barely 20 years old and too slow to have ever survived in that world, that Ryder finally understood what he had become. The boy's mother had screamed over the body, and the sound had followed Ryder ever since. That was 2 years ago, and he had not drawn his gun on another human being since. But for Lily, to protect her from Crow, he would break that vow if necessary. Dawn arrived with a chill that promised autumn was settling into the Black Hills. Ryder rode into Deadwood just as the sun broke over the eastern ridges, casting long shadows across the main street. Lily was already waiting outside the hotel, dressed in practical canvas trousers and a cotton shirt that had probably belonged to her father. Her hair was braided down her back, and she looked younger in the morning light, maybe 25 or 26. "You are punctual," Ryder observed as he drew Ash to a stop beside her. "My father always said punctuality was a sign of respect," Lily replied, reaching up to take the hand Ryder extended. He pulled her up behind him, and she settled onto Ash's back with only slight awkwardness, her arms wrapping around his waist for balance. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through Ryder's system, and he urged Ash into motion partly to distract himself from the warmth of her body pressed against his back. They rode in silence through the awakening town and out onto the trail that led to his property. The morning air smelled of pine and earth, and Ryder found himself acutely aware of every breath Lily took, every slight shift of her weight. "How long have you lived in Deadwood?" she asked as they crested a hill that offered a view of the surrounding valleys. "About 18 months, Ryder said. I came here to disappear, to be someone other than what I was." "And what were you?" He hesitated, but she deserved honesty. "A killer. Men paid me to solve their problems with a gun, and I was good at it. Too good. I have 8 men's deaths on my conscience, and those are just the ones in formal duels. There were others in self-defense, in situations that escalated beyond control." He felt her arms tighten slightly around him, but not in fear. "And now? Now I raise horses and try to sleep through the night without seeing their faces," Ryder said quietly. "I am not asking for absolution, Miss Vaughn. Just explaining why I understand what you are feeling, the need for justice when the law fails." "Lily," she corrected, echoing what he had told her the previous day. "And I do not judge you for your past, Ryder. We all carry things we wish we could change." They reached his property, and Ryder helped Lily dismount before leading Ash into the corral. The practice area he had in mind was behind the barn, a clearing with a natural backstop of earthen hills. He had set up targets there months ago when he first started trying to retrain his reflexes toward something other than killing. "First rule," Ryder said as they walked to the clearing. "Never draw a weapon unless you are prepared to use it. The moment you put your hand on a gun, you have changed the situation entirely. Understand?" Lily nodded, her expression serious. "I understand." "Second rule, accuracy matters more than speed when you are learning. Speed will come with practice, but if you cannot hit what you are aiming at, speed is worthless." He moved to stand behind her. "Draw the revolver slowly. Let me see your grip." She reached for the Colt at her hip, and Ryder watched as she wrapped her hand around the grip and pulled it free of the holster. Her form was all wrong, her grip too loose and her stance unbalanced. He stepped closer, his chest nearly touching her back, and reached around to adjust her hands. "Firm grip with your dominant hand," he instructed, his fingers covering hers to demonstrate the pressure. "Your other hand supports here, giving you stability. And your stance needs to be solid, feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent." He could feel the tension in her body, the awareness of his proximity, and he realized he was more affected than he should be by the scent of her hair, something floral despite the trail dust. Ryder forced himself to focus on the instruction, moving her arms to demonstrate proper positioning. "Now look down the sight," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "Line up the front and rear sights and put your target right on top of that front sight. Breathe normally, and when you are ready, squeeze the trigger gently. Do not jerk it." Lily adjusted her aim toward the target Ryder had set up, a wooden board with a circle painted on it about 20 yards away. He stepped back to give her room, and she took a breath before squeezing the trigger. The Colt bucked in her hands, the report echoing across the valley, and the bullet hit the board but far to the right of the circle. "Not bad for a first shot," Ryder said, "but you are anticipating the recoil and pulling right. Try again, and this time trust the weapon. It will kick, but you are strong enough to control it." They spent the next 2 hours working through the fundamentals. Lily proved to be a dedicated student, listening intently to every correction and adjusting her technique with remarkable focus. By the time the sun was high overhead, she had managed to hit the painted circle 3 times out of 10 shots, a significant improvement. "Your hands must be sore," Ryder observed, noting how she was flexing her fingers. "A little," Lily admitted, "but I want to continue." "We will, but not with the revolver. Let me see how you handle the rifle." The Winchester proved to be a better fit for her skill level. The longer barrel and the ability to brace it against her shoulder gave Lily more stability, and Ryder watched as she adapted to the weapon with increasing confidence. He taught her how to work the lever action smoothly, how to load and reload efficiently, and most importantly, how to control her breathing so each shot was deliberate rather than rushed. "You have good instincts," Ryder told her as she successfully hit the center of the target twice in a row. "Most people fight the weapon, trying to muscle it into submission. You are learning to work with it instead." Lily lowered the rifle and turned to him with a smile that transformed her entire face. It was the first time he had seen her smile, and the impact was like a physical blow. She was beautiful when she smiled, and Ryder felt something in his chest crack open, a feeling he had thought long dead. "I have a good teacher," she said simply. They broke for lunch, and Ryder led her to the cabin where he had bread, cheese, and dried apples laid out. It was simple fare, but Lily ate with appreciation, sitting across from him at the rough-hewn table. "Tell me about your father," Ryder said gently, "if you do not mind speaking of him." Lily's smile faded but did not disappear entirely. "He was a newspaperman in Cheyenne. Honest to a fault, which made him enemies. But he believed in truth, in exposing corruption even when it was dangerous. Crow had been cheating at cards for months, taking money from men who could not afford to lose it. My father wrote an article documenting the pattern, and that same night, Crow confronted him in the street. He did not even give my father a chance to defend himself, just drew and shot him twice. And the law did nothing." Ryder's hands tightened into fists under the table. "The sheriff claimed there were no reliable witnesses, even though a dozen people saw it happen. Crow has connections, money that buys silence and cooperation." Lily's voice hardened. "So I decided if the law would not act, I would. I sold everything my father owned except his rifle, and I followed the trail here. I heard Crow was headed to Deadwood for the gambling opportunities. Do you know when he is expected to arrive?" "Within the month, according to the information I gathered." Lily met his eyes. I know I might die trying to face him, but doing nothing, letting him walk free after what he did, that would kill me just as surely. Ryder understood that sentiment more than he could express. Then we will make sure you are ready. But Lily, you need to understand that even with training, Crow has years of experience. If it comes to a direct confrontation, the odds are not in your favor. Then what do you suggest? She leaned forward, her intensity drawing him in. We stack the odds. We find his weaknesses, we control the circumstances of the confrontation, and we make sure you are not alone when it happens. Ryder reached across the table and covered her hand with his. I meant what I said yesterday. You will not face him alone. Her fingers turned under his, grasping his hand firmly. Why are you doing this, Ryder? Truly. You could have turned me away, refused to help. He could have lied, could have given her a noble reason about justice or redemption. But sitting there with her hand in his, Ryder found he could not do anything but tell the truth. Because from the moment you stepped off that stagecoach, something in me recognized something in you. Grief, determination, the refusal to let the world break you. I have been half alive for 2 years, going through the motions but not really living. Helping you, it makes me feel like maybe I can be more than my past. Lily's eyes searched his face, and he saw the exact moment she decided to trust him completely. Then let us help each other, she said softly. You teach me to survive, and I will remind you why survival matters. They spent the afternoon working on her draw speed and her ability to shoot from different positions. Ryder demonstrated how to fire from behind cover, how to shoot while moving, and most importantly, how to stay calm when adrenaline was screaming through her system. Lily absorbed everything with fierce concentration, and Ryder found himself admiring not just her determination but her intelligence. She asked questions that showed she was thinking beyond the immediate mechanics, considering strategy and tactics. As the sun started to descend toward the western peaks, Ryder called an end to the day's training. They rode back to Deadwood with Lily sitting behind him again, but this time her arms around his waist felt natural rather than awkward. She rested her cheek against his back at one point, and Ryder felt his heart rate accelerate in a way that had nothing to do with danger. Same time tomorrow, Lily asked as he helped her down from Ash outside the hotel. Every day until you are ready, Ryder confirmed. But tonight, get some rest. Your muscles are going to be sore from the recoil. She laughed quietly. I already feel it, but it is good pain, the kind that means progress. She paused, then reached up and touched his cheek briefly, her fingers warm against his skin. Thank you, Ryder, for everything. Before he could respond, she turned and walked into the hotel, leaving him standing in the street with his heart pounding and the ghost of her touch burning on his face. Ryder rode back to his ranch in a daze, trying to understand how his entire world had shifted in just 2 days. The pattern continued for the next 3 weeks. Every morning at dawn, Ryder rode into town and collected Lily, and they spent the day at his property practicing. But it became more than just training. They talked while they worked, sharing stories about their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Ryder learned that Lily had wanted to be a teacher before her father's murder, that she loved reading poetry and could recite entire passages from memory. She learned that Ryder had once dreamed of being a rancher with a family, a peaceful life far from violence, before circumstances had turned him into something else. The attraction between them grew with each passing day, unspoken but undeniable. Ryder found himself looking for excuses to touch her, to adjust her stance or correct her grip, and he caught her watching him when she thought he was not paying attention. The tension was sweet and agonizing, a slow burn that neither of them seemed willing to act on, perhaps because acknowledging it would make everything more complicated. Lily's skills improved dramatically. She could now draw and fire accurately in under 3 seconds, and her rifle work was exceptional. Ryder started teaching her more advanced techniques, things he had learned during his years as a gunfighter. He showed her how to read an opponent's body language, how to anticipate where they would move, how to use psychology as much as physical skill. In a real confrontation, Ryder explained one afternoon as they sat in the shade of a pine tree, sharing water from his canteen, most men telegraph their intentions before they draw. A shift in the shoulders, a change in breathing, a certain look in the eyes. If you learn to read those signs, you gain precious fractions of a second. "Show me," Lily said, turning to face him fully. Ryder stood and helped her to her feet. "Watch my eyes first. Most people's eyes will flicker toward their gun hand just before they draw. It is instinctive." He demonstrated slowly, letting his gaze drop slightly before his hand moved. "See that?" Lily nodded. "Do it again, but faster." They practiced the drill repeatedly, with Ryder playing the aggressor while Lily learned to read his tells. But as they worked, the exercise became something else, something charged with the tension that had been building between them. They were standing close, her hands on his chest to feel the shift in his breathing, his hands on her arms to demonstrate body mechanics, and suddenly they were not moving anymore. "Lily," Ryder said, her name a question and a confession all at once. She looked up at him, her green eyes reflecting the dappled sunlight through the pine branches. "I know," she whispered. "I feel it too. This is not why I agreed to help you," he said urgently, needing her to understand. "I am not doing this to manipulate you or take advantage." "I know that too." She rose on her toes, bringing her face closer to his. "You are a good man, Ryder Ashford. Whatever you did in your past, whoever you were, right now you are good." He kissed her then, unable to resist any longer. Her lips were soft and warm, and she kissed him back with an intensity that made his knees weak. Ryder wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her closer, and Lily's hands tangled in his hair as the kiss deepened. It was passionate and tender and desperate all at once, weeks of suppressed desire finally finding release. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ryder rested his forehead against hers. "This complicates things." "Maybe," Lily agreed, "or maybe it clarifies them." "I care about you, Ryder, more than I expected to care about anyone ever again after losing my father. You make me feel alive in a way I thought I had lost." "I feel the same," he admitted. "But Lily, Crow is still coming, and when he does, everything becomes dangerous. I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me that if the situation goes wrong, if it becomes clear that you cannot win, you will run. You will save yourself instead of pursuing revenge." Lily pulled back slightly, conflict clear on her face. "I do not know if I can promise that." "Try," Ryder urged, "because I am starting to realize that losing you would destroy me in ways that no amount of past guilt ever has." She studied his face for a long moment before nodding slowly. "I promise I will try, but Ryder, the same applies to you. Do not throw your life away protecting me if it means you die in the process." "That is a promise I cannot make," he said honestly, "because protecting you has become more important than anything else." They kissed again, softer this time, sealing their unspoken commitment to each other. For the rest of that afternoon, their training had a different quality to it, less formal and more like a dance. Ryder would demonstrate a technique, and Lily would mirror it, and the space between them felt charged with possibility and promise. As October settled over the Black Hills, bringing cooler temperatures and the first hints of frost, word reached Deadwood that Vincent Crow had been spotted in Rapid City, just over 50 miles away. Ryder heard the news from Samuel at the gunsmith shop and immediately rode to the hotel to tell Lily. He found her in the small dining room, eating a late lunch. Her face paled when he told her, but she straightened her spine and nodded. "How long until he arrives here?" "A week, maybe less," Ryder said, sitting across from her. "Lily, we need to make a plan. Crow is not just going to walk into a fair fight. He is a coward at heart, the kind of man who shoots from ambush when he can." "Then what do we do?" Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice remained steady. "We control the situation. We pick the ground, the time, and the circumstances, and we make sure he knows you are here waiting for him. Men like Crow have egos. If word spreads that the daughter of the man he killed is in Deadwood looking for justice, he will come to you. He will not be able to resist the opportunity to prove how dangerous he is." Lily absorbed this, her quick mind already working through the implications. "You want to use me as bait?" "I want to use his arrogance against him," Ryder corrected. "But yes, essentially. We let him know you are here, we make sure everyone in town knows why you are looking for him, and then we wait for him in a place where we have every advantage." "Where?" Ryder had been considering this since he first heard about Crow's approach. "The old mining office at the north end of town. It has been abandoned for months, but it has good sight lines and multiple exits. We can set up there, and when Crow comes, we will be ready." Lily reached across the table and took his hand. "Ryder, I cannot ask you to put yourself in danger like this. You are not asking. I am insisting." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Besides, you promised to remind me why survival matters." "I am starting to remember, and it has everything to do with you." Over the next few days, they prepared meticulously. Ryder spread word through the saloons and gambling halls that Lily Vaughn was in Deadwood, that she was the daughter of the newspaperman Vincent Crow had murdered, and that she was waiting to face him. The gossip spread like wildfire, exactly as Ryder had intended, and within 3 days, everyone in town knew the story. Meanwhile, Ryder and Lily scouted the old mining office, planning their positions and strategies. Ryder showed her where to take cover, where the best firing angles were, and how to move through the building quickly if necessary. They practiced the scenario repeatedly until Lily could navigate the space blindfolded. "Remember," Ryder told her on the evening before Crow was expected to arrive, "the goal is not to kill him if we can avoid it. The goal is to force him to surrender so he can face proper justice. But if he draws on you, if he leaves you no choice, then you do whatever is necessary to survive." "Understand. I understand." Lily was checking her weapons, a ritual she had adopted from watching Ryder. "But Ryder, if something goes wrong, if he is faster than we expect, or if he has people with him, I need you to know something." "What?" She set down the rifle and moved to where he stood by the window. "I need you to know that these weeks with you have been the happiest I have felt since my father died. You gave me back hope, and more than that, you gave me love. I did not think I would ever feel that again." Ryder pulled her into his arms, holding her close and breathing in the scent of her hair. "This is not goodbye, Lily. We are going to get through tomorrow, and then we are going to have a lifetime to figure out what this is between us. Promise me," she said, her voice muffled against his chest. "I promise," he said, and meant it with everything in him. They spent that night together, not in passion but in quiet companionship. Lily fell asleep on Ryder's shoulder as they sat in the chairs in her hotel room, and he held her through the hours of darkness, memorizing the feel of her breathing, the warmth of her body against his. When dawn came, he kissed her forehead gently to wake her. "It is time," he said softly. Lily opened her eyes and nodded, fear and determination warring in her expression. They dressed in silence, checking their weapons and preparing for what might come. Ryder strapped on his gun belt for the first time in 2 years, the weight of the Colt familiar and terrible. He caught Lily watching him and saw understanding in her eyes. "You really did leave this behind," she said. "I did, but for you I will pick it up again. One last time." He reached out and cupped her face in his hands. "Stay close to me today. Whatever happens, we face it together." They walked through the pre-dawn streets of Deadwood, two figures moving with purpose toward the abandoned mining office. Ryder had already positioned supplies there the previous day. Extra ammunition, water, and medical supplies in case things went wrong. They entered the building and took up their positions. Lily on the second floor with her rifle where she had a commanding view of the street, and Ryder on the ground floor near the main entrance. The wait was agonizing. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and Deadwood began to wake around them. People moved through the streets going about their business, but Ryder noticed how many of them stayed clear of the mining office. Word had spread about what was going to happen, and the town was giving them space. It was just past noon when Vincent Crow rode into Deadwood. Ryder spotted him from the window, recognizing him from descriptions. Crow was a tall man with a thin face and cold eyes, dressed in expensive clothes that marked him as a gambler. He rode a black horse and carried himself with the arrogant confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences for his actions. Crow dismounted in front of the largest saloon and surveyed the street with obvious contempt. Ryder watched as one of the local men approached Crow and spoke to him, gesturing toward the mining office. Crow's face split into a cruel smile, and he nodded slowly. "He is coming," Ryder called up to Lily quietly. "Remember everything we practiced. Stay calm, control your breathing, and do not let him bait you into making a mistake." "I remember," Lily replied, and Ryder heard the tension in her voice. Crow approached the mining office with theatrical slowness, making a show of adjusting his gun belt and checking his revolver. When he was about 30 feet from the entrance, he stopped and called out, "I hear there is a little girl here who wants to play with guns. Why do not you come out and face me properly, Miss Vaughn?" Ryder stepped into the doorway, blocking Crow's view of the interior. "She is not alone, Crow, and this ends today one way or another." Crow's eyes narrowed as he studied Ryder. "Who are you supposed to be, her protector?" "Someone who is tired of watching cowards like you hurt innocent people," Ryder replied evenly. "Lily Vaughn has witnesses who saw you murder her father in cold blood. You are going to face justice for that." "Justice?" Crow laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the buildings. "The only justice is what a man can take for himself. If the girl wants revenge for her worthless father, let her come and take it." "I am right here," Lily called from above, and Ryder heard the steel in her voice. She appeared at the second-story window, her rifle aimed directly at Crow. "My father was worth 10 of you. He was honest and brave, and you killed him because he exposed what you really are, a cheat and a murderer." Crow's face darkened with anger. "Big words from a woman hiding behind a gun and another man. If you have the courage to face me properly, come down here. Or are you as much of a coward as your father was?" Ryder saw Lily's jaw tighten, and he knew Crow's words were designed to provoke her into doing something reckless. "Stay where you are," he said firmly. "He is trying to manipulate you," but Lily was already moving. Ryder heard her footsteps on the stairs, and his heart sank. She appeared beside him a moment later, her rifle still in her hands but her face set with determination. "I am not hiding," she said clearly. "I am here to face you for what you did. And I am giving you one chance to surrender peacefully and face a trial." Crow's smile was reptilian. "I do not surrender to anyone, little girl, especially not to the daughter of a man who died begging for his life." "My father never begged," Lily said, her voice shaking with rage. "You shot him before he could even speak. There were witnesses. You cannot lie your way out of this." "Witnesses who will say whatever I pay them to say," Crow replied. "But I will tell you what, Miss Vaughn, I am feeling generous today. I will give you the first draw. Let us see if you have your father's speed." "Oh, wait, he did not even get a chance to draw, did he?" Ryder saw Lily's hand move toward her revolver, and he knew they were seconds from violence. He stepped forward, putting himself slightly between Lily and Crow. "This does not have to end in death," he said. "Crow, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Even if you are fast, you cannot take both of us." "Cannot I?" Crow's eyes flicked between them, calculating. "I know who you are now. Ryder Ashford, the famous gunfighter who disappeared 2 years ago. I heard you had gone soft, swore off killing. Is that true? Or are you still fast enough to matter?" "Fast enough," Ryder said quietly, "but I am hoping I do not have to prove it." For a moment, the tableau held. Crow facing them with his hand hovering near his gun, Lily with her rifle partially raised, and Ryder standing between them trying to find a way to end this without more bloodshed. The street around them had gone silent, every person who had been watching now hidden behind windows and doors. Then Crow moved. His hand darted toward his revolver with practiced speed, and Ryder reacted on pure instinct. His own Colt cleared leather in a fraction of a second, and he fired just as Crow's gun came up. The bullet hit Crow in the shoulder, spinning him and sending his revolver flying from his hand. At the same moment, Lily fired her rifle. Her bullet hit Crow in the leg, dropping him to his knees in the dusty street. Crow screamed in pain and rage, clutching his wounded shoulder while blood spread across his expensive shirt. "Do not move," Lily commanded, working the lever on her Winchester to chamber another round. "I will not kill you, but I will make sure you never walk properly again if you try to reach for another weapon." Ryder moved forward quickly, kicking Crow's fallen revolver away and checking him for other weapons. He found a derringer in Crow's boot and a knife in his belt, removing both while Crow cursed and writhed in pain. "Someone get the sheriff," Ryder called out, knowing people were watching. "And fetch the doctor. We need Crow alive to stand trial." The sheriff, a heavy-set man named Bullock, emerged from one of the buildings and approached cautiously. He took in the scene and nodded slowly. "Crow, you are under arrest for the murder of Edward Vaughn in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Miss Vaughn, I will need your statement and the names of those witnesses." "You will have everything you need," Lily said, her voice shaking now that the immediate danger had passed. She lowered her rifle but did not take her eyes off Crow. "He murdered my father in front of a dozen people. They will testify." The doctor arrived and began tending to Crow's wounds while Bullock organized a group of men to carry the injured man to the jail. Through it all, Crow glared at Lily and Ryder with undisguised hatred. "You think this is over?" Crow spat as they lifted him onto a stretcher. "I have friends, powerful friends. I will be out of jail before the month is done." "Then they will have to answer for harboring a murderer," Lily replied coldly. "Because I will make sure everyone knows exactly what you did and who protected you. My father taught me the power of the written word, and I intend to use it." Ryder felt a surge of pride at her words. She had faced her father's killer with courage and had chosen justice over simple revenge. As Crow was carried away, still cursing and bleeding, Ryder turned to Lily and saw the tears streaming down her face. "You did it," he said softly, taking the rifle gently from her shaking hands. "You faced him and you won." "We did it," Lily corrected, throwing her arms around his neck. "I could not have done this without you, Ryder. You gave me the strength and the skill to see this through." He held her while she cried, releasing weeks of tension and grief. The people of Deadwood began to emerge from their hiding places, and several came forward to congratulate Lily and offer their support. It turned out that many of them had heard about her father's newspaper work and respected what he had tried to do. Over the following weeks, Lily worked with Sheriff Bullock and a prosecutor from Cheyenne to build the case against Crow. Witnesses came forward, including several men who had been intimidated into silence before, but now felt brave enough to speak. Crow's expensive lawyers tried every trick they could think of, but the evidence was overwhelming. During this time, Ryder and Lily's relationship deepened. She moved out of the hotel and into his ranch, and they spent their evenings talking about the future. Lily had no desire to return to Cheyenne, where every street corner held memories of her father's death. Instead, she talked about starting fresh in Deadwood, maybe opening a school for the children of miners and ranchers. "This town needs more than just gold and gambling," she said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the Black Hills in purple and orange. "It needs families, education, hope for something better." "Then build that," Ryder encouraged, his arm around her shoulders. "You have the passion and the intelligence to make it happen, and I will support you however I can." "What about you?" Lily turned to look at him. "What do you want for your future, Ryder?" He considered the question seriously. "I want to expand the ranch, breed horses for working and riding. I want to be known for creating life instead of taking it, and I want to do it all with you beside me." Lily smiled, that brilliant expression that still made his heart race every time he saw it. "Is that a proposal, Mr. Ashford?" "Not yet," Ryder said, his own lips curving upward. "When I propose, it will be proper and romantic, not just an assumption made on a porch. But Lily, I want you to know that you are my future. Everything I do from now on is with the goal of building a life you will want to share." "I already want to share it," she said, kissing him softly. "You helped me find justice for my father, but more than that, you helped me find myself again. The woman who can be strong and vulnerable, who can fight when necessary but also dream about peaceful tomorrows. That is the gift you gave me." The trial of Vincent Crow took place in early December. The territory sent a judge from the capital, and a jury was assembled from surrounding communities to ensure fairness. Lily testified about her father's death, describing in clear, steady words what Crow had done. Other witnesses corroborated her account, and Crow's lawyers had no effective defense against the mountain of evidence. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a guilty verdict. Crow was sentenced to hang for the murder of Edward Vaughn. When the sentence was read, Lily sat in the courtroom with Ryder's hand clasped in hers, and she finally felt the weight of her grief begin to ease. Her father had received justice, and she could begin to move forward. The hanging took place a week later, and Lily chose not to attend. "I do not need to watch him die," she told Ryder. "Knowing that justice was served is enough. I want to spend that time thinking about the future instead." So while Deadwood gathered for the execution, Lily and Ryder rode out to a meadow in the hills where wildflowers bloomed even in early winter, sheltered by the surrounding peaks. Ryder had planned this carefully, bringing a blanket and a picnic basket with Lily's favorite foods. They sat together watching the winter sun shine on the snow-capped mountains, and Ryder finally asked the question he had been preparing for weeks. He took Lily's hand and looked into her green eyes, seeing his entire future reflected there. "Lily Vaughn, you walked into my life when I had given up on being anything other than a collection of regrets and mistakes. You reminded me that redemption is possible, that love can heal even the deepest wounds. You are the bravest, most remarkable woman I have ever known, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of you. Will you marry me?" Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling as she answered. Yes, yes, I will marry you, Ryder Ashford. You are already worthy, but I will spend my life reminding you of that fact every single day. He slipped a ring onto her finger, a simple gold band with a small emerald that matched her eyes. He had commissioned it from a jeweler in Rapid City, wanting something unique for her. Lily held up her hand, watching the gem catch the sunlight, and then she pulled Ryder into a kiss that was deep and full of promise. They were married a month later in a small ceremony at the church in Deadwood. Samuel Harrison stood as Ryder's witness, and Mrs. Gertrude Clark, the woman who ran the hotel where Lily had stayed, served as hers. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Ryder felt something he had not experienced in years: pure, uncomplicated joy. Their first year of marriage was filled with hard work and happiness. Lily opened her school in a building donated by one of the more prosperous mining companies, and within weeks, she had 20 students ranging in age from 6 to 16. She proved to be an exceptional teacher, patient and creative, and the children adored her. Ryder expanded his horse breeding operation, gaining a reputation for producing sturdy, intelligent animals perfect for ranch work and long-distance riding. His past as a gunfighter became a distant memory for most people in Deadwood, replaced by his present as a respected rancher and husband. They faced challenges, certainly. Some people initially distrusted Ryder because of his reputation, and there were a few attempts by Crow's former associates to cause trouble. But Ryder and Lily faced everything together, their partnership growing stronger with each obstacle they overcame. In the spring of 1880, Lily discovered she was pregnant. Ryder's reaction was a mixture of terror and elation, and he immediately became absurdly protective. Lily tolerated his hovering with amused patience, reminding him that women had been having babies since the beginning of time. "I know," Ryder would say, "but they were not having my baby, our baby. That makes it completely different." Their daughter was born in October of that year during a thunderstorm that rattled the windows of their ranch house. The midwife, a capable woman named Sarah who had delivered half the babies in the territory, handled everything with calm efficiency while Ryder paced outside the bedroom and tried not to panic. When Sarah finally emerged and told him he could come in, Ryder entered the room to find Lily propped up against pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up at him with a tired smile. "Come meet your daughter," she said softly. Ryder approached slowly, almost afraid to disturb the scene. When he looked down at the baby's face, red and wrinkled and impossibly small, something in his chest expanded until he thought he might burst with it. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed and touched one tiny fist with his finger. The baby's hand closed around his finger reflexively, and Ryder felt tears slide down his face. "She is perfect," he whispered. "You are perfect. Thank you, Lily. Thank you for giving me this." They named her Emma Grace Ashford after Ryder's mother and Lily's grandmother. Emma had her mother's green eyes and her father's dark hair, and from the beginning, she had a personality that was entirely her own. She was curious and fearless, already trying to explore everything within reach by the time she was 6 months old. Lily returned to teaching part-time once Emma was old enough, and they worked out a system where Ryder would bring Emma to the school during the day. The students adored having a baby around, and it became common to see Emma being entertained by a group of older children during recess, while Lily taught her lessons. The years passed with surprising speed. Emma was joined by a brother, Thomas, in 1882, and then another daughter, Catherine, in 1884. The ranch house expanded to accommodate their growing family, and Ryder built additional barns and corrals as the horse breeding business flourished. On the 10th anniversary of the day they met, Ryder and Lily rode out to the meadow where he had proposed. Their children were spending the day with the Harrisons, giving them a rare afternoon alone together. They spread a blanket in the same spot where they had sat a decade earlier, and Lily leaned back against Ryder's chest, his arms wrapped around her waist. "You ever regret it?" Lily asked softly. "Taking on a grieving woman with a revenge mission. Your life would have been simpler if you had walked away that day." Ryder pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Simpler, maybe, but infinitely emptier. You are the reason I am alive in any way that matters, Lily. You and our children, the life we built together, that is what redeemed me. Not running from my past, but facing it and choosing to be better." "You taught me the same thing," Lily said. "That strength is not just about being able to face your enemies, but about being willing to open your heart even when you are afraid. You steadied my aim that day I stepped off the stagecoach, but you also showed me how to aim for something better than revenge." "We saved each other," Ryder said simply. "And I would do it all again, every single moment, to end up right here with you." They watched the sun set over the Black Hills, the sky turning brilliant shades of red and gold, and Ryder reflected on how much had changed since that September day in 1878. He had been a man haunted by his past, barely living, and Lily had been a woman consumed by grief and anger. Together, they had found something neither had been looking for, a love that transformed them both. The gunfighter had put down his weapons for good, finding purpose in creating rather than destroying. The daughter seeking revenge had discovered that justice and healing were more powerful than vengeance. And in the space between triggers and heartbeats, between grief and hope, they had built a life that honored both their pasts and their future. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Lily turned in Ryder's arms and kissed him with the same passion she had shown on that first day in his training area. He kissed her back with all the love and gratitude he felt, knowing that he was the luckiest man in the territory to have her by his side. They rode back to the ranch as the moon rose, silver light illuminating their path. In the distance, they could see the warm glow of lamps in the windows of their home, and Ryder felt a contentment so deep it was almost painful. This was what he had been searching for during all those violent years: peace, family, love. When they reached the house, their children rushed to greet them. Emma's excited chatter about her day mixing with Thomas's questions and baby Catherine's delighted babbling. Lily scooped up Catherine while Ryder lifted Thomas onto his shoulders, and Emma held her mother's hand as they all went inside together. That night, after the children were tucked into bed with stories and kisses, Ryder and Lily stood together on their porch looking at the stars scattered across the vast Dakota sky. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of pine and earth, and in the distance they could hear the soft sounds of their horses settling for the night. "Happy anniversary," Lily said, resting her head on Ryder's shoulder. "Happy anniversary," he replied, pulling her closer. "Here is to another 10 years and another after that, and as many more as we are given." "That sounds perfect," Lily murmured. "Growing old with you, watching our children grow, building something good in this wild place. That is all I need." "It is all I need too," Ryder agreed. "You, our family, this life. It is more than I ever dreamed possible." They stood together in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other in the midst of pain and violence and had chosen to create something beautiful instead. The reformed gunfighter who had learned to love again, and the determined woman who had taught him how. Their story had begun with bullets and grief, but it had transformed into something infinitely more powerful. Love, Ryder had discovered, was the greatest act of courage he had ever attempted. And every day with Lily, every moment with their children, was proof that he had finally gotten something right. The notches on his old gun belt no longer defined him. Instead, he was defined by the family he protected, the horses he raised, the community he served, and the woman whose aim he had steadied, only to lose his heart completely between the triggers. As they turned to go inside, Lily paused and looked back at the night sky one more time. "Thank you," she whispered, and Ryder knew she was speaking to her father, to the universe, to whatever forces had brought them together. "Thank you," Ryder echoed, his arm around his wife's waist as they crossed the threshold into their home. The door closed behind them, shutting out the darkness and enclosing them in warmth and light. Outside, Deadwood continued its raucous existence, gold seekers and gamblers and dreamers all chasing their fortunes in the Black Hills. But inside the Ashford ranch house, a different kind of wealth had been found. The kind that could not be measured in gold dust or territory, but only in the quiet moments of connection, the laughter of children, and the steady heartbeat of a love that had endured and deepened with every passing year. Ryder tucked his children into bed one more time, kissing each forehead and adjusting blankets with the careful tenderness that never failed to make Lily smile. Emma was already half asleep, murmuring something about horses and adventures. Thomas clutched his carved wooden horse, a gift Ryder had made for him, and Catherine's tiny hand curled around her mother's finger. When they finally retired to their own room, Lily changed into her nightgown while Ryder stood by the window, looking out at his land. He felt her arms slide around his waist from behind, her cheek pressing against his back. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How grateful I am," he answered honestly. "Every day I wake up and I cannot quite believe this is real. That you are real, that our children are sleeping down the hall, that I get to live this life." Lily moved to stand beside him, taking his hand in hers. "It is real, and it is ours. We earned it, Ryder. Through everything we survived, everything we fought for, we earned this happiness." "You are right," he agreed, turning to face her fully. "And I intend to spend the rest of my life being worthy of it." "You already are," Lily said, rising on her toes to kiss him. "You were worthy the moment you decided to help a desperate woman with more determination than sense. You were worthy when you chose to be better than your past. And you are worthy now, every single day, in every choice you make." They held each other in the dim light of their bedroom, two hearts beating in synchrony, two lives intertwined so completely that neither could imagine existing separately. The Wild West continued to be wild around them, full of danger and opportunity and change. But here, in this moment, they had carved out something permanent and true. Years would continue to pass. Emma would grow into a young woman with her mother's intelligence and her father's strength, eventually becoming a lawyer who fought for justice in the territories. Thomas would take over the ranch, expanding it into one of the most successful horse breeding operations in the region. Catherine would become a doctor, drawn to healing in a land where injury and illness were constant companions. But all of that was in the future, unwritten and unknown. Tonight, in 1888, 10 years after a grieving daughter and a reformed gunfighter had found each other in Deadwood, South Dakota, they were simply Ryder and Lily Ashford, husband and wife, partners, best friends, the loves of each other's lives. As they lay down to sleep, Lily's head on Ryder's chest and his arm around her shoulders, they both felt the profound peace that comes from knowing you are exactly where you are meant to be. The nightmares that had once haunted Ryder's sleep had long since faded, replaced by dreams of his family and future. Lily no longer woke with tears on her face, mourning her father, though she never forgot him. Instead, she woke each morning grateful for the life she had built and the man beside her. "I love you," Ryder whispered into the darkness, his voice rough with emotion. "I love you too," Lily responded, her hand finding his in the space between their pillows. "Always and forever." "Always and forever," he agreed, and within minutes both were asleep, safe and warm and deeply, completely happy. The moon tracked across the sky above the Black Hills, silver light painting the landscape in shades of gray and white. Somewhere in Deadwood, music played in a saloon and men gambled away their fortunes. Somewhere, dreams were born and died in the space of a card turn or a lucky strike. But at the Ashford Ranch, there was only peace. The horses in the barn shifted and breathed content in their stalls. The chickens roosted in the coop. The land itself seemed to settle into rest, the wild grasses and pine trees still in the windless night. And inside the house, a family slept, safe in the knowledge that they were loved and protected and cherished. This was the legacy Ryder and Lily had created together. Not one of violence or revenge, but one of love and healing and hope. Their children would grow up knowing that their parents had faced darkness and chosen light. That courage meant not just facing your enemies, but also opening your heart to love even when it seemed impossible. The story that had begun with gunshots and grief had transformed into something beautiful. The reformed gunfighter had found redemption not through running from his past, but through building a future worth living for. And the woman who had come to Deadwood seeking revenge had found something infinitely more valuable. A love that healed her wounds and gave her a reason to dream again. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold, the Ashford family continued to sleep peacefully. Soon enough, the day would begin with all its demands and joys. Emma would ask to help with the horses. Thomas would want to explore the creek that ran through their property. Catherine would need attention and cuddles. Lily would prepare lessons for her students, and Ryder would work on training the new foals. But for now, in this moment before the world woke, there was only peace and love and the profound satisfaction of knowing that every struggle had been worth it. Every tear shed, every fear faced, every moment of doubt had led to this. A family, a home, a life built on the foundation of a love that had conquered everything thrown against it. Ryder stirred slightly in his sleep, instinctively pulling Lily closer, and she responded by curling more tightly against him. Their breathing synchronized, steady and calm, the rhythm of two people so attuned to each other that even in sleep they were connected. The sun rose fully, flooding the bedroom with golden light. Somewhere in the house, one of the children began to wake. The day was beginning, full of promise and possibility. And Ryder Ashford, the man who had once been defined by death and violence, opened his eyes to see his wife's face on the pillow beside him and felt nothing but gratitude. "Good morning," Lily murmured, her eyes fluttering open. "Good morning," Ryder replied, kissing her forehead gently. "Ready for another day? With you," Lily smiled. "Always." They rose together to greet their children and begin another day in the life they had built. A life filled with love and laughter, hard work and simple pleasures, challenges overcome and dreams realized. It was not the life either of them had expected, but it was better than anything they could have imagined. And as Ryder watched his daughter practice her reading, his son feed the horses with careful concentration, and his youngest laugh at her siblings' antics, he understood with perfect clarity that this was what he had been searching for during all those violent years. Not glory or respect or even redemption, but simply this: the chance to love and be loved, to create rather than destroy, to build something that would last long after he was gone. Lily caught his eye across the breakfast table and smiled at him, that brilliant expression that still made his heart race after 10 years of marriage. He smiled back, conveying without words everything he felt: gratitude, love, devotion, joy. She nodded slightly, acknowledging the message, and Ryder knew she felt the same. They had found each other in the wildest of places, at the darkest of times, and together they had created light. The reformed gunfighter and the woman seeking justice had become partners in every sense of the word, building a legacy not of violence but of love. And that, Ryder thought as he watched his family laughing together in the morning sunlight streaming through the windows, was the greatest victory he had ever achieved. Not the duels won or the reputation earned, but this: breakfast with his wife and children, a ranch full of horses, a community that respected him for who he was now rather than who he had been, and a love so deep and true that it had transformed everything it touched. The story of Ryder Ashford and Lily Vaughn had begun with triggers and tears, with grief and determination and the desperate need for justice. But it had become something infinitely more beautiful, a testament to the power of love to heal, to redeem, to transform. They had steadied each other's aim and lost their hearts in the process, but what they had found was worth more than anything they had lost. As the day unfolded with all its ordinary magic, Ryder gave thanks for the journey that had brought him here. Every mistake, every regret, every moment of darkness had been necessary to bring him to this place, this family, this love. And he would not change a single moment of it because it had all led him to Lily and the life they shared. The sun climbed higher in the Dakota sky, warm and bright, illuminating the land they had claimed as their own. And in the Ashford ranch house, a family continued their day, unaware that their love story would become legend in Deadwood, told and retold as an example of how even in the wildest of places, love could flourish and transform. Ryder had steadied Lily's aim and lost his heart between the triggers, but what he had gained was infinitely more precious. A future filled with hope, a family that brought him joy beyond measure, and a love that would endure for all their days and beyond. And that, in the end, was all that truly mattered.